So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And Reverend, I have the pleasure of introducing to the audience the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, Rebecca Weiner. And I've been privileged to know her. She is extraordinarily smart. She's exceptionally nice. And I think all of New York is the beneficiary of her capability. So, Commissioner Weiner, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
And
yeah, that's good. Great introduction, because those two things don't always go together.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
Well,
and let me give you one more thing, Rev. You know I'm from Boston, and she went to Harvard.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Undergraduate and graduate.
Don't tell me that she's a Boston fan. Don't tell me.
Well, I can't get that out of her, but I know she was spent some time in Boston.
Secret.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Rebecca, let me ask you this. What keeps you up at night? You've been asked that many times, but given all of the things going on now in our world, what keeps you up?
Well, there's plenty to choose from, and I will just tell you by way of funny anecdote, unrelated to what keeps me up at night. I remember my freshman year of college, there were a bunch of people sitting around the table, and somebody asks, is it more important that people think of you as smart or nice? And I think I was the only person who said nice. So I extra appreciate your introduction.
Because you knew you were smart. You knew it. Everybody
Right.
told you that. Come on, from kindergarten.
I don't know about that. But one thing I am smart enough to know is that there are plenty of things to keep all of us up at night and to keep our bureau here at the NYPD very busy. Over here, we've come to calling the threat environment, the everything, everywhere, all at once threat environment, because what we're dealing with is so varied and it comes at us so quickly and seemingly with very little predictability, requiring us to be very much on our toes. And we can go back through any period of, a couple months over the last 2 years and see the variety of threats and how quickly we have to pivot from one to the other.
So it's an office that never sleeps. I mean, we talk about the city that never sleeps, but when you're dealing with the threats, and some of them, obviously more serious than others, but all have to be taken seriously, it's a 24-hour cycle.
It certainly is a 24-hour cycle. And part of the way that we have come to deal with that is to have an international footprint. So we try to stay as close to the source of the issue as we can in order to understand everything that we can about it and to be able to protect our city accordingly. So we've got 13 cities around the world where we have NYPD officers posted from our bureau to help us understand the threat environment, understand what's happening around the world, and very quickly identify what the repercussions will be for our city. It's not just internationally, it's across the country. As the protests started unfolding in Los Angeles, we had real-time reporting, of course, from our partners out there and also from the NYPD officer who is posted in Southern California. So this is a huge force multiplier for us. And again, the threat environment is very varied and diverse. One day it is protest-related civil disobedience. Another, it's an ISIS plot disruption. Another, it's the Iranian government that's seeking to assassinate people. It really is quite all over the place. But the one thing that holds it all together is our partnerships, our cooperation, and the experience that we've had over the years being a united front in contending with it.
Commissioner, so you're saying that you understand the global in order to apply it to the local.
Exactly. Very well put. So the global and
Prepare,
the threat
'cause when
environment is global.
Yeah, how do you prepare?
How do we prepare? So, knowledge is power. Information, we turn it into intelligence, we operationalize it, and we act accordingly. We prepare by making sure that even if an incident overseas or across the country isn't major headline news, we dissect it. And we've got intelligence analysts who are civilian, who work hand in glove with uniform officers, everyone who's in New York City, everyone who is overseas, also our federal, state, local, international partners, increasingly private sector, and we can come back to that if you'd like, because that's an interesting story of how the private sector has become much more involved over the years. And we dissect incidents, right? We study them very closely, and we think, what is the New York question? If this incident were to happen here, where might it occur? How might it transpire? Are there any gaps that we need to close in order to be more prepared? And with that information, which we process and enhance and turn it to intelligence, which is sort of news you can use, we then deploy our operational resources. And so if you have been in and around New York City in the last 20 months since October 7th, you will have seen our high visibility patrols, enhanced deployments frequently of officers who are wearing uniforms, carrying heavy weapons, deployed around the city to protect soft targets. So those we deploy based on intelligence. We use our intelligence to help notify partners outside of our city of threats that they should be tracking. And so all this network of relationship building and of understanding the implication of the information we're receiving, we use to prepare. The earlier we can act on something, the better. And we do it in a couple of ways. Part of what we're seeking to do is to deter a would-be bad actor from carrying out an attack in our city. We make it as inhospitable for bad stuff to happen as possible. Part of it is detecting and disrupting a plot that may be in progress, an incident that is about to happen. And then, of course, there is the defense, the response, if something indeed happens. And all of that works together in a big machine. We describe it as the parts that you see and the parts that you don't, and they have to work together.
Interesting. How do you make people recognize, and it's very difficult because you see hate crimes on the increase, especially anti-Semitic hate crimes. And there are people who are thinking, am I really safe in a house of worship? Am I safe walking to a house of worship if I'm visibly Jewish, if I'm wearing a yarmulke, a Jewish star? And you don't want people to hide their identity. At the same time, there is this thinking process that when I see what happened in Boulder, Washington, D.C., as a Jew, how safe am I?
Absolutely. And, here I really want to offer a word of reassurance, because the whole point of our program is, of course, to disrupt threats. And we had a good example of that this past week, the extradition of an individual named Mohammed Shahzad Khan to New York from Canada, who was an ISIS adherent, who was allegedly seeking to attack a Brooklyn synagogue on the first anniversary of October 7th. A very concerning set of facts, but exactly what our machine was designed to do. Officers and agents assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force working with partners in Canada were able to identify this individual early on and disrupt him before he was able to come into the country to carry out this kind of plot. So it's a two-part message. You hear about the bad things happening, and the response is, oh, that makes me concerned. And I say, I am a mother, a Jewish mother of 2 young kids, and there's nothing that I wouldn't do in this city. There's no event that I wouldn't go to. I wouldn't hide my identity in any way, even knowing everything that I know about all of these threats. We are here. And also there is a robust network of community security organizations, and people are in a very different place than they were several years ago in terms of vigilance and awareness. We know that people report to us.
Well, we're going to have to take a break right here, Commissioner, and Rev, I know you're going to come back with questions. Stay tuned for more of The Rev and the Rabbi.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Tosnick.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we are speaking with the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, NYPD, for the City of New York, Rebecca Weiner. Rev?
Yeah, I have a question because recently 5 individuals and charities were sanctioned for funneling funds to Hamas and PFLP, the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. How much investigation do you do when it comes to digging this deep to find out who's funding terrorist activities?
That is a large part of our investigative efforts within the Intelligence Division as well as within the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And if I had been asked 3 years ago whether Hamas would be a high priority terrorist organization for us to be working on, I would have said, I don't think so. And it is so interesting to me. Hamas was one of the very first investigations that I was read into when I joined the NYPD back in 2006. So there's a persistent pattern of activity that many of these foreign terrorist organizations have involved themselves in as it relates to what's happening in the United States. That's true for Hezbollah. It's true for Hamas. And then with the rise of ISIS in 2014 through 2016, and we started to see people traveling overseas to Syria, people conducting acts of terrorism across the country here. Some of these more long-standing groups were subordinated in their importance across the intel community. And now we see, post-October 7th, of course, that what's old may become new, and we have to remain laser-focused on all of it. So we still focus very heavily, of course, on foreign terrorist organizations, Hamas, PFLP, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, and its affiliates, ISIS, and its adherents and its subsets across the world, as well as the domestic violent extremist actors that we see across the political and ideological spectrum, whether it's the far right, far left, conspiracy theory, all of that is in play. But financial investigations are a big part of what we do, following the money to its source.
I remember
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, a follow-up question, because you mentioned in the first segment the partnerships with private sector. Explain how that works to us.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Clorox Scentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Scentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country. Anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Over the years, I came on in 2006, and at that time, we were primarily dealing with external actors. Al-Qaeda was driving a lot of the threat, not all of it, but a lot. And the threat was external coming in. And the information that we were collecting was really held in often secret government channels, and that's how intelligence work happened. But with the rise of social media, with the rise of the internet, open source intelligence has become a huge element of what we do. A lot of people are telegraphing their intentions to commit acts of violence online. The partnerships that we've created, and we just had the 20-year anniversary of an NYPD program called NYPD Shield, which is a public-private partnership. So the relationships that we've developed with private sector entities and the amount of information that's available in the open source world have become absolutely invaluable to our investigative efforts. So, of course, having the relationships and getting the information from federal partners is very key. But increasingly, it's as likely to be somebody from the public who's notifying us about suspicious activity, or even private security folks who are not just the last line of defense in terms of an attack in progress, but often the tripwire for us, telling us about suspicious emails that they've received, social media posts that they're finding, behavior that they're observing. So this really requires deep and extensive partnerships with a wide range of partners.
Wow. So, Commissioner, I remember years ago there was a really heated exchange when it came to the issue of surveillance. I think at that time, surveillance of various mosques. And people were saying, you have no right to do that. You're violating our civil liberties. How do you walk that tightrope? People say, on the one hand, we have a right to go to the mosque, right to pray. The other side, well, you don't have a right to plot. But you have to have the information that's critical so you can surveil.
Well, we have some incredibly talented lawyers in our department who oversee all of our activities to make sure that, we are, of course, focused on protecting the public and keeping people safe. But we have to do that in a way that also protects their civil liberties and that also protects community trust, incredibly important. And so there is a consent decree that has existed for some 50 years that governs NYPD's investigations that have a nexus to political or religious activity. It's called the Handshoe Consent Decree. And it's governed by a federal judge. And it requires us to meet all of these benchmarks and to operate within constraints that allow us to do what we need to do to protect public safety, but to do it in appreciation of and with commitment to protecting civil rights and civil liberties. And since 2017, we've had a civilian representative who comes into our headquarters, who is an integral part of our team, and who gets briefed on all of our investigations. And it's extra eyes and ears outside of the police department to have a fresh and different approach. And this has been incredibly helpful in saying, okay, we're really concerned about this. And if the civilian rep shares our sense that this is priority investigation, great. And if there's a question, then we can answer it. And it just allows for an external addition to our own deliberations, which are plenty and very energetic, around what we're doing all day. So this has been really helpful. And the consent decree gives us certain predications that we have to meet in order to carry out our investigations. So I'm a big fan of having lawyers involved in what we do to make sure it's on the straight and narrow, and also to make sure that we're keeping the public safe. And we've been able, thankfully, to thread that needle very well.
How does, FBI is under new leadership, and they're scaling back domestic terrorism staffing. and it presents concerns about shifting toward immigration enforcement and violent crime as opposed to terrorism. Does that affect what you do at all?
So we work really closely with partners on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, with the FBI in my bureau, and that's separate from the work that happens with the criminal task forces outside of my bureau. And we work extensively on a wide range of cases. I've been talking about the international piece mostly, but we also do tons of work with them on white supremacist activity, on anti-government extremist activity, what we call racially and ethnically motivated activity. So that partnership is very much ongoing and continuing, and we have our own teams within our Intel division that do that work as well. So I have every confidence that that priority issue is going to remain prioritized by us through this partnership and also through our own resources.
Interesting. I have sometimes an argument with a friend. He says, you only have to worry about the left. All the extremism problems come from the left. I said, I think you got to look at both sides. Just because you're on one side and looking at the other side, you got to look within. Aren't the threats coming from both sides, Commissioner?
The threats are coming from all over. And I hate to sound like a catastrophist because I'm really not. I have tremendous confidence. We have an extraordinary team of people who are working on these issues. And part of that work means recognizing that extremism of all forms, of all genres, across the political spectrum, across the ideological spectrum, is with us today. And so we cannot be partisan about it. We cannot be political about it. We have to be very clear-eyed. And anyone who is looking to use violence as a means to achieve a political message is going to be somebody that we take a hard look at. So in today's environment, you can find craziness all around you. And that's why we do what we do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
All right. And stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple National Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potosnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, as many people know, what happens in New York is known around the country. We have a primary election coming up. And one of the candidates has espoused views that we consider to be anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. There's no place for a Jewish state. There's a place for others, but no place for a Jewish state. And it's very worrisome. And one of the politicians said recently, I'm supporting this guy, even though I have some disagreements. And I thought, you know what? The word disagreement is not strong enough. If you find that there are things that he says that really go against the tenets of another people, don't say you're a friend of ours, but you disagree. Say you're a friend and you denounce. And I just find with the word disagree, you can get away with stuff.
Rabbi, I think that we're at a place in our society where we don't really believe the dangerous things that a candidate says. Yeah. I think that we're saying, he doesn't really mean it, and we just shrug it off instead of considering the implications of the statements that are being made.
Interesting.
And that's unfortunate because it puts us asleep and it allows things to happen, and then we stop to think about it when it was already being telegraphed. That's a dangerous place for society to be.
Then this candidate, look, his name is Mandani. He quotes Ed Koch. Ed Koch would totally denounce him. Ed Koch would disassociate. Don't quote Ed Koch as if he's one of your friends. Come on.
I take it you don't particularly care for this guy.
No, I think he's dangerous. I think he's dangerous. Not just for the Jewish community, but for other communities. Then of course is, free this, free that, and we know who's going to pay the bill.
But he's a socialist.
And that's worked out well in the world. That's been successful. Yeah, the Bernie Sanders approach. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Socialism, look, Rabbi, socialism has been around as far back as Aristotle and some of the great thinkers. It's always been a theory. But in practice, we've seen it fail.
A disaster.
That's another story.
I remember years ago it was Natan Sharansky, who was a prisoner in the former Soviet Union. And he was finally released, and he was going to go to Israel. That was his plan, which he did go to Israel. He spoke at Yeshiva University. And in Q&A, someone said, Mr. Sharansky, what are you going to do now when you go to Israel? He says, the first thing I'm going to do is talk to them about the evil of socialism. We who lived under it know how bad it is, and capitalism is a far superior system. So that's the first thing I'm going to teach them. Yeah, it hasn't worked. Someone has to pay the bill. And simply to say, we'll give it to the top 2% or whatever, that top 2% is employing a lot of people.
It is great in theory, but it doesn't work in practice. And the 19th and 20th century were the first that it was attempted, and it failed. It doesn't work. That's the reality. And not that capitalism is perfect. There is no perfect system. There's no perfect social construct. But I rather live in a society that, allows me to explore my gifts, my talents, my abilities, and translate it into value in the marketplace.
Yeah.
That's the way I want to live.
One of the messages I think that we must learn from all of this is the importance of voting. So often you see the numbers, and 15, 20% vote? And then they complain about the results when they didn't participate in the process. So
you mean they protest?
Yeah, the critics remember when in the Bible when the Torah was being given, it says the people stood at a distance, and you look at it and say, wait a minute, here's one of the most important times in your lives, and you're standing at a distance. Religiously, they're afraid. You can't stand at a distance. You can't care about something and be removed or remote. You got to be there. And therefore, you got to vote. It's a responsibility. Don't come to me and saying, this person shouldn't be in office when you didn't participate. You didn't do anything. Yep. Matter of fact, you helped get elected the person you really didn't want by not voting.
That's right. Not voting is a vote for someone that you may not want in the position of power. Look, power. We got to see our vote as giving someone power. That's important. It's going to impact our daily life, impact the quality of life. So you've got to think of that very carefully.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for? Now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii in sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
What's worse than an ad interrupting your favorite music or podcast? That uninspired coffee you've been drinking while working, which is why Flavia is elevating your everyday coffee experience. Now you can enjoy cafe-quality beverages like coffee, tea, frothy lattes, and creamy hot chocolate made right in your home office, actual office, or wherever you want to upgrade your mug with bold, delicious flavors. Visit Flavia.com to shop the collection of machines and beverages now.
At the Board of Rabbis, and I know other groups as well, are sending out all kinds of notices telling people you got to be there. And I said recently, to me, it's a religious responsibility the land in which you live is the land which you have to support. And voting, it's a privilege. It's a privilege that comes with a responsibility. And I just hope people take it. I have a sense that this primary election is going to bring out a much larger number than in the past. The stakes are too high. And when you have a candidate who spouts some of the stuff that this guy does, it's a reason. He gives you the reason to get out and vote. This is the guy you don't want. Make sure that he's not there. Yeah.
Well, I guess you heard it, audience. He's very clear on who he does not want you to vote for.
Because I love New York, even though I'm from Boston. I love New York. I love the diversity of our city. It's we all, for the most part, we all get along. We all work together. I know there's some of the ugly stories that get out there, but we still get along together. And to have someone who's so divisive, to me, is very dangerous. So take it seriously. I want to ask you a question. We are now reading, the book of the Bible is called Numbers. In Hebrew, it's not just numbers. I mean, there's a census and all of that, but it's called the desert or the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions is, why would the Bible be given in a desert? The Sinai desert. Why give it there? And one of the things you look at is because you have a responsibility here too. It's called the Sinai desert. You have to bring Sinai to the desert, to that barren area, to that desolate setting. You have to bring some values. And I look at all of us as faith leaders and people of faith. We have to focus on the Sinai in the midst of a desert. And sometimes we feel we're all alone, nobody cares. That's where Sinai matters so much.
Well, let's unpack Sinai. What does Sinai, besides Mount Sinai, what does Sinai symbolize? What is it a symbol of in Numbers?
Well, if you ask people who look at the Bible and say, what does Sinai mean to you? It means where the Torah was given. It means the Sinai desert where the people traveled. The story of the Exodus, right, was in Sinai. There's a holiness that is attached to that name. So you have to bring the holiness into everyday life. And that's what, to me, religion is all about. You have to elevate yourself. You have to, look at people as not just another person, but another person in the image of God. So, you like we talked about feeding the hungry, and that's very important, of course. But it's not just about feeding the hungry. It's also about treating people with respect who are hurting, who need strength and support. That when you're feeding them, you're talking to them, and you're telling them that they matter too and you care about them. It's not just standing in line and handing someone a plate of food.
So Sinai is the giving of the law, the giving of the Torah, right?
Yep.
And the law was designed to order a people, to order a society, giving them ritual and practice, but also laws that govern human relationship, their relationship with God, correct?
Yes.
So is it about divine order and the ordering of society in a very specific way towards health and strength and prosperity?
And a relationship. I'm glad you used that word. It's where do you fit in all of this? It's not just the law that was given to you, but now you have to internalize it. You have to have a relationship with the Creator. And how you interact with others is a manifestation of your relation with the Creator. Can't say I love God. This is all part of your tradition. Can't say I love God and hate my neighbor. You gotta. You have to reconcile the two. Now, sometimes when you have a neighbor like mine, as someone said, there's reason to hate that neighbor. That neighbor is different. But you can't say I don't care about other people. I don't care about me, but I love God. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So Sinai is a place of divine clarity, law, order, and spiritual purpose. But then the wilderness, the desert, which is a symbol of testing, chaos, and rebellion. So he gives them the law and then releases them into the wilderness, a place of testing and chaos and rebellion. Yeah. How do we understand that, Rabbi?
Well, isn't that what life is? I mean, we spoke to the deputy commissioner, talked about terrorism, talked about the threats we have. She talked about, crisis in our own society. What do we do? How do we confront it? And Sinai says to us, well, prayer is fine, but then you also have to have a plan. A house of worship, and you and I have talked about security. You have to create a plan. You can't say God will protect us and just stop right there. God will protect us combined with we who must protect ourselves. We got to take a break here, and then we'll come back with more discussion.
This was good. So stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rev and the Rabbi. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
I'm glad, Reverend, you're spending so much time in the Hebrew Testament today. The Sinai Desert. Go ahead.
It's foundational. But when I think of the desert, it's a wilderness. It's a place of testing. It becomes a proving ground for Israel's faith. God shapes and fashions the Hebrew identity, national identity of a people. But it's also a testing place for hunger, thirst, enemies, and uncertainty. And that really sums up the challenges that we face in life on a daily basis. Yes?
When I say we, you and I and others, we meet with the Cardinal on a regular basis. And he begins by reading a psalm. And the psalm starts with these words: God is in the midst of the city. It doesn't say God is hiding somewhere in some enclave away from, in the midst of the city. What does that mean? That means in the midst of chaos, confusion, all of the issues that people in the city have to confront, that's where God is. And I think that's what Sinai and desert say to us, that you can't retreat from the problems of the world. You have to deal with them and use the value system you have to try to alleviate the pain, to try to eradicate some of those problems, and to make it a better place, a safer place.
You inspire me with these conversations because now I'm thinking about the law being the black and white, legal. But when you get out into the desert, you have to live it. And that's the gray. Life is about nuance. And we experience nuance and mature through nuance when we're facing life's challenges on a daily basis. How do I take that precept and now apply it to the complexity of life on a daily basis? So that's what I'm getting. This is great stuff.
You use the word nuance. You don't hear that word much anymore because, as you said, it's us and them. It's black and white. Everything, you're on one side or the other side. You can't look at, maybe you're right, maybe you're right. Try to integrate something from both sides. It's one or the other. Everybody's traveling on this one-way street. There's no other lane. And that's dangerous. And you and I know that that's not what life is. You have to learn. Somebody once asked somebody, "What's your favorite color?" He said, "Plaid." It's
that's true.
Right. There are other colors. there are other groups, and it's so easy. I guess it simplifies life if you can just put everything in that one or the other. But that's not reality.
Yeah, and that's children. As children, all right, we experience life in what is called concrete understanding, right? We need the lines, we need the guardrails, we need clarity and moral standards, etc. And that's great for a child, to help a child make sense of a complex world. But as you mature, you realize that everything doesn't fit neatly into lined boxes, that most of life is lived in the gray. You come in contact with nuance. It's not this or that. There's this big space in between that we've got to wrestle through that nuance. Yes?
Yeah, one of the commandments it says, "Thou shalt not murder." Now, wait a minute. Don't we have wars? Don't we have a right to defend ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at it, very simplistically, you can't take someone else's life. Really? Under any circumstances? And that's where it becomes a little more complex and a little more gray, a little more nuanced. The circumstances. You got to look at the circumstances. You do have a right to defend yourself. And when necessary, you can take someone else's life. So it's very easy to stand back and say it's either this way or that way. Sometimes it's both.
But you deal with people in your faith tradition, as we do in ours, who prefer the black and white.
Yeah.
They want it because they don't want to have to think through or deal with the challenges of the gray. So they rather it. You're in or out, heaven or hell. That's it, right?
I'm going to talk about something that probably some people may not agree with, but that's okay too. You have a right to disagree. I'm looking at the immigration situation.
You have a right to be wrong. Go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
But we say you have a right to believe, you have a right to disbelieve. You look at the immigration situation. I was talking to a rabbi in L.A. It's complicated. We use the word, it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Violent protesters, absolutely no right. You have no right to do that. You got to be punished. People who commit crimes, you got to be punished.
Right.
But there are people here, and this is what some of us wrestle with, who've been in this country for many years, who overstayed the visa. But during those many years, they've contributed to the system. They pay taxes. They've given back to society in many ways. They're involved in constructive labor, constructive work. Many of them are, vital professionals. What do you do with them? Is it black or white, or is that gray?
Yeah. And that's what we have to work through as a society. Our laws say one thing, and it's not just about enforcing the law. It's understanding underlying issues that contribute to certain actions and ideas. And I'm not saying that we psychologize it and not reprimand or not enforce law. But I think it's finding the right balance of what we call in our tradition, the pastoral and the prophetic.
Yeah.
Law and order versus the context that an individual is experiencing.
The president said this past week that the expulsion of immigrants, wholesale expulsion, will very much be injurious to the farmers. They need workers. So all of a sudden we're saying, wait a minute, you have illegal immigration, but you have a necessity here. And you have people who've been working, giving back, productive. What do you do with them? Not so simple as some people thought. And right? You got to think it through. And I think some people are doing that, but I'm tired of people who just, it's us and them. That's the only thing. And, there are only two people, you and I are the smartest people, and I'm not sure about you. That's why some people think, then it becomes just me. I think we have to wrestle. Jacob wrestled in the Bible, right? He wrestled with the angel, right? I think that's what life is all about. We wrestle.
And I think the Bible is not a book of laws that we simply apply to a very complex human existence, but I think it's a library of wrestlers and individuals who are trying to navigate the realities of human existence, the complexity of the soul, and we're given a window into their experience. When I study the life of Moses, it's very complex what he went through, and we reduce it into a simplistic Bible story, but it's not. He went through a lot as a human being, from the very beginning to the end of his life.
That story where he struck a rock. And because he struck a rock.
The first or the second? Oh, yeah.
Struck a rock, and all of a sudden you don't get to the problem. That makes no sense. For striking a rock, your punishment is so severe. Here you work so hard to get people to the promised land. Oh, wait a minute, you struck a rock. But it means more if you look at it and really look at the commentaries, what happened was he called the people fools. That's what it is. He lost patience with him. He was no longer able to continue as a leader. Now, the next generation will continue after you. But if you just look at it very simplistically, of course, he didn't listen to God. He struck a rock. He didn't talk to the rock.
Yeah, which questions God's character.
Yeah.
For responding so angrily,
that was Moses' retirement plan. That was the promised land. I'm gonna go there. Now I'm gonna take it easy. That was the Boca Raton of that day. But you look at it and you say, oh, I understand it. And maybe it also tells us nobody ever reaches the promised land if you're a person with aspirations. If you're a person, right? You never fulfill everything you aspire to do in your life.
I think it speaks to human nature because we're never satisfied. We are never satisfied. No matter what we achieve, accomplish, have, we have this feeling that there's something more that we should be chasing after. And until you tame that, it leaves you uneasy and sometimes in a deep tension.
Yeah, but that's it's a healthy thing that before we get up there to preach, inside you churn a little bit.
When you're separating from the military, no one tells you how hard it can be to get your civilian life up to speed. But with VA benefits, It doesn't have to be. From the VA home loan requiring no down payment, to the GI Bill covering tuition, books, and cost of living, to VA healthcare offering top-ranked, low-cost care designed specifically for veterans. All the support you need is at VA. I'm here telling every veteran because I wish someone had told me. Get what you earned. Visit choose.va.gov.
Not all veterans are eligible for the type or amount of benefits mentioned here.
Out having fun, but the background noise makes hearing impossible? Your friend just cracked a joke, but you completely missed it.
And then, immediately ordered tacos.
Discover Nuance Audio, the new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Discreet, comfortable, and easy to use. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce annoying background noise so you can focus on the conversations that matter. Find a store near you at nuanceaudio.com.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Every journey I take leaves a lasting impact. Traveling the world only makes me realize just how much more there is to explore.
No one builds a legacy by standing still. Start your journey at remova.com.
You can't just, say, all right, I got to the sermon. You go through. There is this internal discomfort because you want it to be right. You want it to be received well. And the preparation that goes into it. Right? So we take it seriously. And I think in that sense, life is a wrestling match. Not one that's prearranged where you know the winner. It's a wrestling match. And we do as much as we can to walk away. But Jacob walked away limping from that wrestling match. So you pay a price for wrestling with the issues that impact your daily life.
I'm glad you crafted that because I'm working on a sermon now. I appreciate the inspiration. Thank you. And all you preachers out there that are listening to this program, we give you material.
You know what I also
and
learned?
Living life. Give you material to live life as well.
When I thought about the deputy commissioner who was outstanding today, I thought, you walked by a house of worship years ago and you saw a police car. You said, what's going on there? Why is that police car there? Today, it's a reality. You walk by many houses of worship, you have police cars there. So be safe, and thank God we have those who are there to protect us, NYPD and all of the others, FDNY, they really care. Thank you, Rev.
And wait, we've got to wish a happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
Because today's Father's Day, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about that.
Every day is Father's Day.
See, the Mother's Day gets all of the attention.
Exactly.
The restaurants are back, and Father's Day gets a mere mention.
I think they found out that the gifts for mothers are much more expensive than the gifts for dads. Dad gets the card. Mother gets the flowers, the dinner. Dad, give him a card. In some cases, give him a card he gave him last year. All right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, thank you.
It's been great conversation. And to those of you celebrating Father's Day, we wish you the best. And until next time, right here on the Rev The Rabbi, God bless. Stay healthy.
Thanks for listening to The Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear The Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?